So what I will try to do today is to tell you something about what we call the phenomenon of the Italian design factories by using as example the story of my company. I'm sorry to say that since I noticed that the time schedule is very strict and severe, I will cover only one part of my speech, and the second part will be done maybe for the next symposium. So please, I ask somebody to make me a sign when I go too far. Okay. Ecco qui. So first the family. Alessi is also today a family company. Here you see the part of the big family which is still working within the company. The place, Vallestrona Lake Horta, is a place 100 kilometers north of Milano, very close to the Swiss borders. The valley that you see to the right is called Vallestrona. Vallestrona is a very narrow valley where around 3 centuries ago started a tradition of production of small objects in wood and metal for the table and for the house in general. A very conservative area, place also today, as you may see, some local products. The valley is also today the biggest producer of wooden Pinocchios, in spite of China. This is a spinning, the lathe. It was the very first machine that helped the people there to make the production. And here are my two grandfathers. To the left, Alfonso Bialetti, the father of my mother. He was the inventor, the designer, and then the producer of the first Italian espresso maker. Very, very handmade. And the other grandfather, Giovanni Alessi, started the Alessi company in 1921. First catalog and first product. During the first year, the production was very, if I may say so, normal, not characterized by design. Design, in the sense that we give today to this term, started in Alessi with my father Carlo, who was trained as an industrial designer and who designed the majority of Alessi products between 1935 and 1945. Eccolo qua. One of his first projects. And his last project is a tea and coffee set called Bombay, in production since 1945. Here you see my father very proud and happy with this last project of him. Then at the end of the 40s, beginning 50s, my father took on the responsibility of general management of Alessi. He abandoned completely his activity as a designer, and early 50s, he started asking outside designers and architects to come and to have a collaboration with Alessi. I must underline that this very moment, beginning 50s, may be considered as the starting moment of the phenomenon of the Italian design factories. Together with my father, several of his industrialist colleagues felt the need to characterize their new production right after the war, not only by the quality, the material quality of the products, not only by the very interesting price, but also in order to add some aesthetic characteristic. Here we are in the 50s. Some early prototypes. One of the earlier projects is the cocktail shaker, the one to the left, designed by Massoni and Mazzari in '57. Born in a teapot means me, and in the sense that my destiny, being an Italian, very traditional family company, was clear, my destiny. So actually I started in 1970 within a teapot. But my father left me some space also to take responsibility of the design management for some projects. So I did, also because I felt that let's say, living within the company at that time was a bit boring, producing all this kind of very utilitarian stuff like trays, wine coolers, coffee makers, and so on. So I had the idea to create a new collection of objects without any functional purpose, called art multiples, meaning like real sculptures, actual sculpture designed by sculptors, not by designers or architects, and produced by my machines offered at a very low retail price. So I asked several European sculptors to create their own art multiple. As you see, the collection was presented in 1971, and very quickly it showed to be a big fiasco, meaning that customers showed no interest at all in my poor multiples. And so my father stopped me, and I couldn't continue with the collection. I also asked Salvador Dalí. Here you see the Spanish maestro together with his first art multiple prototype. The drawing of the project of Salvador Dalí. His title was Objet inutile, vase sur un problème de topologie négative. Now I understand he was probably joking with me, but at that time I was too young. As I said, my father blocked me. I couldn't continue, and I couldn't put in production the Dalí multiple, but my father could not stop me before I bought around 50,000 of these hooks that you see there, which were part of the Dalí multiple. I found a producer in Oslo. We still have these 50,000 hooks in our warehouse because after him I have collaborated with hundreds of designers, but no one of them found an idea to reuse my poor hooks. Okay. This is another project. This is my uncle, another very severe person. Then later on, during the 70s, I was then very lucky, I must say, because I had the possibility to start working with some of the great Italian design maestros all over the 70s. The first of them being Sottsass, who has created one of the biggest collections, we call them families, of objects in our catalogs. Ecco. The second being Richard Sapper. Richard is actually German, but since he's living and working in Milano since the 50s, he is considered an important, integral part of Italian design history. Richard was the designer of the first espresso maker in production since '79, and also of the first Alessi water kettle. This water kettle has a story that helps me to try to explain to you a little bit more clearly the practice of the Italian design factories. Well, the idea of Sapper was to create a new water kettle, a new tea kettle, but that in order it being polysensorial, meaning able to appeal to several different senses, not only to the eye or to the touch. And so his idea was to to make the kettle able, when the water was boiling, to produce a melody. Instead of the normal, very noisy sounds produced by the average kettles on the market. He wanted a melody, not only a melody, but a melody that could remember his childhood when he was a child living in a village in Germany. There was a river and there was a steamboat passing on the river and producing this melody. To be short, after 1.5 years, my technicians did not find a way to have the whistle producing the melody Sapper wanted, so I was obliged to put this project on the side, to abandon it. Until 2 more years later, one of Sapper's sisters living in Germany found out in the Black Forest a small craftsman producing chorists. Now, I don't know if you know what a chorist is. I brought one with me. A chorist is a small pipe in metal with inside a leaf, gold-plated, and it is producing the purest La musical note. And it is used to tune musical instruments, especially brasses, like saxophones, for example. After this discovery and after long negotiations with this German artisan, you know Germans, we convinced the German artisan to produce 2 special versions of these pipes in Mi and C that put into the whistle were then producing a melody. This melody was not exactly the original melody Sapper wanted, but at the end he accepted the compromise. We could start again with the project, which then became a very important project for Alessi. By casuality, I brought here one of these whistles. I want to show it to you. Somebody has stolen my whistle. Okay, found it. So this is the whistle, and the chorists are supposed to be put within the pipes. Every time I have the whistle in my hands, I cannot resist to make a demonstration. May I? Grazie. So, imagine when the water boils. First, start the Mi. And then immediately after the C. And go playing together. As I said, it is also today a very important project for Alessi, even if it has, I must confess, some minor functional problems. The main problem being that since the chorists were not conceived for that specific purpose, it may happen, depending from the quality of the water you are using, that after some time they oxidize, and so they do not play anymore the original melody. Of course, the materialistic function of boiling water is still there, but not the most important function, which is, according to Sapper, the poetical function. But in every single box we add 2 additional chorists, which are very easy to replace. I have to run because I have a little time. Okay. Then Sapper and La Cintura di Orione. This is another project with Sapper, who has he has a rhythm of 5 years every project. This was a bit longer. It took me 8 years of work. And the idea was to combine together an excellent designer with some excellent cooks, European cooks. Each of them chose some tools, and they developed the project together with Sapper. Achille Castiglioni. The third maestro is Achille. Achille has designed the first Alessi cutlery called the Dry in '82. This ashtray, oil and vinegar sets, cutlery, drinking glasses, this big fruit bowl. And the fourth is Alessandro Mendini. Alessandro actually has a special role within the universe of the Alessi designers, in that he is not only a designer designing things for me. He is only, in a way, the Alessi official historian, since he wrote the first history of Alessi production. He is also the designer of some of the most experimental designs that we are producing, like in this case the Alessophone. The Alessophone is a new saxophone developed with a lot of care for aesthetics, but also for technique, with two specialists of saxophones. It is by far the most expensive saxophone on the market. We produce maybe 8 per year. And Alessandro Mendini is also what we call the cultural responsible for some research operations, like was the case for Tea and Coffee Piazza at the end of the 70s, when we invited some architects from all over the world, offering them to try to express themselves also in product design. From Austria, Anson Line, Charles Jenks from UK, from Spain, Oscar Tusquet, from Japan, Yamashita, 4 American, Richard Mayer, Michael Graves, Stanley Tigerman, and Bob Venturi. And from Italy, Paolo Portoghesi and Aldo Rossi. One step back. Alessandro Mendini is a very special character as a designer, because he is, for example, very proud of the fact that he is a designer that designs things that do not sell. Meaning that his taste is a bit too sophisticated for normal people, what is completely true. But unless, like 15 years ago, without help, he made a big mistake of his life by designing what became Anna G, a corkscrew that became one of our 10 top bestsellers. Still is. After 10 years, Anna, by the way, this corkscrew is also the portrait of Anna, the young girlfriend of Alessandro Mendini at that time. Anna was was feeling to be alone, so we decided to give her a companion, a friend, Sandro, that you see here. Sandro comes also in different variations. You see, even Mendini at the end surrendered to consumer society, but his way. Here we are at the 80s. It happened in my profession, in my life, that almost every 10 years I have worked with about 100 different designers, new people. But then looking back, I see this decade was marked by only a few of them, which reasons are still difficult for me to understand. So, for example, the 80s were characterized mainly by 3 designers. The first was Aldo Rossi, the Italian architect. Aldo had a kind of obsession for coffee and coffee-related objects. He has created our second coffee maker, La Conica, in '84. In 85, La Cupola in cast aluminum, sorry, in 89. Aldo has also created our first watch. Aldo died in 97. This is his last project for Alessi. It is a pot, a cubic pot, that is considered his last homage to the, functionalist motto, form follows function. Since it is the best ever pot for cooking cubic tomatoes. But I tell you, it works. The only problem is to find the proper cubic tomatoes. Except it's fantastic. And the American Michael Graves. Michael has been our design hero, the most successful Alessi designer between half 80s to half 90s. His kettle is one of the Alessi top products also today. And the third being the French designer Philippe Starck. Here you see a picture of Philippe when I met him, and the second should be now. You see the time passes, but not for everybody. But now it is because of after some help, some aesthetic surgical help. Much more beautiful now. Anyway, Philippe has designed some very controversial products for Alessi, like this squeezer. This was the project of the squeezer. It came to me on, these paper mats of pizzerias. He was eating calamaris and had the intuition to design this squeezer. The original commission from Alessi was to design a very simple stainless steel tray, and the squeezer was his answer. Or the big kitchen colander Max Le Chinois, 91. Or his, at that time, very famous not working water kettle, Hot Bertha. But you see, sometimes we receive, mainly from Japanese customers, the demand to produce again this kettle. But I refuse. Errare humanum est, perseverare diabolicum. Philippe is not only a very talented designer, he has also special talent to create the names for his objects. For example, this is a cheese seller combined with a cheese grater, and its name is Mr. Moo Moo. Here, very quickly, some other projects developed during the 80s. Sorry, this is some boring theory. I save you. I just wanted to point out that at the end of this period, is like 20 years, 70s and 80s, I started understanding clearly that in a way, I was managing my company, but the company was actually driven by designers, by my designers. So that my job was, in one hand, it was a very nice job, but on the other hand, it was very risky and difficult to manage. I also understood that because of the strong personality of these designers, they succeeded in leaving each of them an important imprint within the Alessi overall practice. They succeeded, maybe unconsciously, to change the identity of Alessi from the first shape, which was like to be more or less a normal industrial company producing objects designed by the best Italian designers, changed into another shape, which was a kind of research, industrial research laboratory in applied arts, or an industrial research lab in design. And I also understood that my deep role, as well as the deep role of my colleagues of the other Italian design factories, was to be a kind of mediator. Our true activity is to be mediator between, on one hand, the best expressions of creativity in product design from all over the world, and on the other hand, the so-called market. I do not like the word market, I consider it too rough. I prefer to use final customer dreams. This activity of mediation, I think, is the main characteristics of the Italian design factories today. And it is also the reason, if I may say so, that why, if someone is looking for the best British design, he has to go to, very often, if not always, to an Italian design factory catalog. And the same if you are looking for the best French design or, I don't know, Brazilian design. These skills, which were improved decade after decade, these skills of mediation between creativity and the market. Actually, this story of design that we see as a new form of art and poetry, very typical of our times, was not invented by Italian design factories. It is this phenomenon of the Italian design factories can be seen as the last, at the moment, the last ring of a much longer chain, a chain which started in the middle 1900s in England with the arts and craft movement. John Ruskin and William Morris. Another ring being, the Deutscher Werkbund, founded by architect Hermann Muthesius, or the Wiener Werkstätte in Vienna beginning 1900, with Hoffmann, Kolo Moser, or Dagobert Peche. Or in Scotland, the Glasgow School of Art of Charles Rennie Mackintosh. Or the Bauhaus in the 20s in Germany. Just to mention a few of these other phenomenon. I repeat, we believe that our true nature comes closer to be a kind of research lab in the applied arts than to an industry in the traditional sense of the term. Very quickly, some, I guess you know them, but just some pictures of the colleagues of the Italian design factories. Okay. This is a TV set designed by Marco Zanussi for Brion Vega in the 60s, or the Pas d'Urbino Lomazzi for Poltronova, Tizio Lamp by Sapper for Artemide, a chair by Pier Giacomo Castiglioni for Zanotta, a light by Castiglioni and Pio Manzù for Floss, or Magistretti for Artemide. This is a strange case of I try to call you a kind of adopted child of the phenomenon of the Italian design factories. I mean Vitra, which I feel has exactly the same characteristics of an Italian design factory. Maybe it is also because of the fact that we are very close, both very close to Switzerland. Me from the south and you from the north. Or Bruno Munari for Danese, or some example of the radical design of the 80s, Sottsass, Andrea Branzi, and Alessandro Mendini for alchemia. As I said, this characteristic of being a research lab means that we like, but we also have to develop an enormous number of projects every year. Every year we present 50 to 60 real projects to the market, but in reality we develop much more, and then we filter, we select them. Here the product is the little bracelet. Another of my dreams is the Alessi Mobile. It's a project that I have developed almost 20 years ago with the Philip Stark. It only remained as a prototype because my brothers and cousins did not give me enough money to continue with the real car. And here there is another example of the practice of the Italian design factories. Another Italian design maestro, Enzo Mari, was insisting with me that Alessi should prove its sensibility to the environment by creating a new project using only recycled plastic bottles. And in order to make a beautiful flower vase. We have worked to the project for some time. Then at the end, I was obliged to explain to Enzo that the cost for collecting the bottles, cleaning them, washing, cleaning, cutting, putting into a box, at the end, the final value of the object was not enough to be realized, to be actually sold, the perceived value. And so I convinced him that the solution was, here you see the final product, was to produce only the instruction booklet. What we actually did, the instruction booklet was sold for several years. Inside there are very beautiful handmade drawings by Enzo Mari explaining how you can self-produce the vase. Into the booklet there is also a big label that at the end of the self-production one can add to the final product, and it proves that it is an original Alessi product. This is a map of Alessandro Mendini. How many minutes? Just a few pictures of the 90s. 90s for us were a completely different story. We felt the need to open our doors also to the young mainly Italian designers. There was a new interesting generation of Italian designers, especially the King Kong, Stefano Giovannoni and Guido Venturini. They have developed a huge collection of ludic objects using plastic. This is a cat of a friend of mine. This is the Merdolino, very much criticized, mamma mia, product. This has nothing to do. It's the famous salt cellar by Benvenuto Cellini. I would like to have it as a product. And the other pole of the 90s is a real other pole, is represented by the neo-minimalism of Justin Morrison, who, in spite of Giovannoni, his big friend, is also very successful. But okay, I just want to end by telling you that this is a story of having the responsibility of the company. But then the company was actually driven by my designers, was a bit silly in a way. But at the end, during the 90s, maybe beginning of the years 2000, I understood the story. And in order to express this story I found in the very nice greenhouse shop here in the garden. Something that can help me to express. It is a little plant, you see. So I understood that actually my job was understandable with the metaphor of the good gardener. I am actually working in my company as if I was a gardener. My job is to prepare the ground very well and then to plant the seeds, but also to hope that the wind could bring some new unexpected seeds. And then as soon as the little seed starts flourishing, to take care of it in order to permit to any specific seed to express its best possibilities. This is the job of the gardener, and this is also, in my opinion, very close to the job of an Italian design factories. Very much linked, of course, to the fact that we do believe design is a new form of art and poetry, is a new creative discipline with a matrix which is clearly an artistic metric. And the final job, the final end of the job being to try to create new objects, new projects that could help people to decode our age, to decipher our modernity, but without being just overproduction of this modernity. I mean, trying to bring a little bit of transcendency in order to improve the consciousness of our consumer society. At the end. Thank you.